Welcome to the Human Reboot with me, Emma Last. We have uplifting, inspiring and diverse reboot stories from people sharing the courageous, honest, authentic and sometimes difficult life lessons. The Human Reboot will provide proven mentally flourishing formulas and practical tips to help you to live life to the full, giving you direction and hope. Make your mental fitness and well-being a daily priority. Learn to pause so that you can get clear and perform at your best. Switch off to switch on. It's time for your Human Reboot. Today on the Human Reboot podcast, I have with me Vicki Jakes. Vicki is an online marketing and website optimization consultant helping small businesses sell more stuff via their websites. Using her 20 years of experience leading teams of developers, designers, copywriters, and user experience specialists and testers for global clients, she knows her way around a website. So she has a huge passion for getting us all to want to take care of our websites and not be ashamed to send traffic to it or forget to share the URL when asked to. So welcome, Vicki.
Thanks, Emma. Thanks for having me.
Well, I can't wait for this. I've known Vicki probably for a couple of years now, and we met in a group, I think, in 2019. Where we were focusing very much on our missions. So tell us a bit more about your mission.
Yeah, sure. I didn't know I had a mission until a couple of years ago. But I genuinely have a passion for getting business owners to care about their tech. My background is in a corporate agency career. I've worked with some of the biggest companies in the world, big kind of pharma, FMCG, finance, fintech, you name it. But in all those years, I always held a little torch, a little candle in the back of my brain for the small business owner, because they couldn't afford to work with the likes of us. And so when I did go out on my own and set up my business back in 2018, so just over 3 years ago, I knew I specifically wanted to work with small business owners. And I knew that I wanted to bring all of this agency level, marketing and kind of tech work that I'd done to those people specifically, because I could have carried on in the corporate world and earned quite good money, but going out on your own and deciding to work with small business, that isn't a path to riches immediately at all. But it's because I had a mission, a true mission. And that mission was just born out of being around a lot of arrogant people in the agency and corporate world who just thought small businesses don't get it. Normal people don't understand what we do, but that's just absolute lies, right? Because if you give people a chance, they can and will care about their own tech. They can and will care about their own websites, and they definitely can care about driving traffic to their websites as well.
Well, I care about that. Yeah, that's also a huge reason why I've been in your world as well. So I've been part of Vicki's membership since I think it was about January 2020.
Oh my God, Emma, you're like a founding member.
Yeah, I'm like.
Don't play it down. I love having you around.
And at that point, I had outsourced my website prior to that. And then I wanted some changes doing on it. And then it just wasn't kind of what I wanted. And I just said, please, can you just have a look at this website? Because it's just really not what I want. And just tell me whether it's me being really picky. And she looked at it and she was like, no, I can show you what you need to do. And actually, I think you helped me, didn't you, quite a lot in that beginning bit. And then
yeah, because your website was a really good example of a small business owner who's savvy. You just want to get on and do the thing to earn money for your business, right? But you were being held back by, the people who were creating that website for you, not getting back to you, or, talking down to you, or, saying, well, you can wait 7 weeks to do one small change. And it's that sort of culture of dealing with small businesses that, I really feel like I need to highlight and kind of change. And it definitely is what gets me out of bed every day, is just helping small business owners like you, well, not so small anymore, but be able to get on and run your business, and not not be one of these people who's like, oh, I hate tech, I'm technophobic. Like, you love it and you understand it, and you can have proper conversations with the people you then end up delegating or outsourcing to, which is, where you're at now. You can confidently like look at your website. We were saying offline earlier, and you could probably delegate in a better way this time around, right?
Yeah. Or just do it myself.
Or do it yourself.
Which I didn't think that I ever would want to do, but like uploading podcasts and stuff like that. Yeah, I can outsource that to a VA, but actually it's a 2-minute job, that for me. So, once you know how to use it and don't, God, I was so frightened, wasn't I? I was just like, I can't do that. I'm frightened touching it. I'll break it. I'll lose it.
That's an interesting word, right? Frightened is definitely like a word, like a key word that comes up a lot when talking to small business owners about their website, because we get cultured, especially women of a certain age, right? Because we're not necessarily like digital natives. We weren't born into digital, right? So it's definitely something that was introduced into at school time or college time or workplace time or whatever. And we'd always have that guy or that woman, but usually it was a guy saying, you're going to break that, don't break that, you could break that. And we're frightened of breaking our own websites. We're frightened of breaking the tech. This whole thing about people being, oh, I'm a bit technophobic. It's like, no, it's just you've never had a safe space to investigate and play around and break stuff and know how to put it back online. Like when you ring up your developer and you're like, oh my God, my site's gone offline, and you end up paying like 300 quid to get back online, chances are they've pressed one button, right, to do the thing that they're doing. And you don't know about that button. And it's my mission to help people understand where that button is, if you get what I'm talking about.
Absolutely. Yes. Well, thank you very much for your help. She did have a hand in the Human Reboot movement website.
My pleasure.
So you're on the Human Reboot today.
Yeah, I'm really nervous about it. I never talk about me. I only talk about the things I know. So this is a first for me.
Yeah, I know. Well, on the Human Reboot, we ask people to share their stories of when they've had reboots in their life. And it could be some people feel that they've had one and some people feel like they may have had many. So please, could you share with us your reboot story?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've had a couple of reboots, I think. The kind of first one, which I won't go into detail about, was getting to a point where I'd burnt out so much working in an agency environment. I had to go and get therapy. I ended up getting cognitive behavioral therapy to be able to understand like why I kept freaking out. You've got to understand, like, in that world, it was doing easily like 60, 70-hour weeks, multiple different jobs, looking after client work, helping build websites, get them delivered on deadline. I was personally managing, multiple teams as well, and also sat on the board of the company that I was working at, and a senior director as well. So, it's just, I'm doing client work and dealing with clients who were very accommodating and not very understanding about deadlines being moved around. And I used to party really hard as well and go out clubbing and have a really good life before kids. I don't regret those times. Now I've got kids and I feel like I'm definitely straight-laced in comparison, but it all kind of came together in my early 30s, and I kind of definitely like broke down kind of mentally for a little bit. I just couldn't work out what I wanted to do, and I ended up just staying in the same world and just getting therapy to help me understand like how to stay there. But it was one of the best things I ever did, actually, because I haven't really burnt out again since, but I actually ended up having a kind of a bigger reboot a few years later. In my career, I went on to continue at that agency, and then I had my first baby. Stayed there for a little bit longer, but because we'd moved from London down to Brighton, the commute was a bit too much. I had a lovely 9 months off. I'd negotiated going back to the office 4 days, working from home 1 day. Like life was pretty good. It was okay, but I felt like I wanted to investigate, seeing if there was something different out there. Yeah. So I sort of parted ways with them after 6-7 years, and it felt like a real relief. I felt a little bit institutionalized being at that business so long. Even though I could affect a lot of change culturally, it wasn't my business. Being away on maternity leave as well, it meant that I felt out of the loop, as many women do when they go back to the office. And after that, I never found my groove again in my career. I went to work for a software company in Brighton, which was fun, but I wasn't as senior as I had been used to being for like 6-7 years. I got promoted really young, and and I'd learned an awful lot. And then I kind of lost my gun and my badge, if you like, for a little bit. So, so which was fine. I had a small baby and I just wanted to enjoy living by the seaside for a little bit. And, the thing with that particular business, it was like a software company employing lots of young people. So, I missed out on going out and having jollies, with all the people I work with, because I had to go and do parent duties. And so that sort of side of my life was like starting to kind of really like be put behind me as I focused on family. And I realized I loved, the family bit. I really wanted that. And I would do anything to create like more time. And something switched definitely inside of me around that time. And I thought I might try and find another business that I can work at where I could be senior again and help them grow like I did with the first agency I mentioned, and just do something really amazing again, really help take them somewhere. And I started shopping around and kind of doing interviews. Didn't realize as I started shopping around that I was pregnant with my second daughter. And I went for an interview with a company I really wanted to work for. Like, they were an e-commerce business, really similar to the first company I mentioned. So I thought there's so much opportunity here. And I had my career head on of I'm going to help grow the teams and I'm going to really affect change and bring in culture and all of these amazing things, right? But, I was pregnant and I had this decision to make, like, do I stay at my corporate job in the software company and see out the next 2 years, because I'd have a maternity leave and be pregnant at that job. I'd have a maternity leave and then I'd come back and maybe negotiate the same job that I had before. Maybe not. It's fast moving. The company was going to get bought at any point. We didn't know when. It was quite an attractive acquisition. So it just felt a little bit uncertain. But the other option was just leaving and going to get a job at this other agency, and knowing that I wouldn't have a maternity leave, right? And for some reason, I went down that path because what I wanted to do was shortcut the opportunity to do bigger things. Because as soon as I started to have kids, the amount of time that I had just became really obvious. I didn't have time to mess around and see what I felt like in a certain culture and whether this company would fit with my values or not. And just give it a year, like I used to do in the past. I really wanted to make a mark. So I took a gamble and I said to the person interviewing me that I'm pregnant. Does that make any difference? And I went for a negotiation and, they were able to offer me a really good role. Not great money though. And again, not compared to the heady heights of London. But I say this as a really entitled, like white person living in Brighton. Like, I'm sure some people would have appreciated the salary. But again, I had like these big ambitions, Emma. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I thought it's okay. It's a start. It's a startup vibe. I'll help grow it. And, I'd managed to negotiate 12 weeks of maternity leave. I thought this will be fine, right? This will be fine. So what started was the beginnings of another burnout that didn't happen. It was a burnout that wasn't a burnout, basically. I worked really hard. There I was doing 60-hour weeks. Whilst I was pregnant, as well. I didn't have any holiday. I worked right up until my due date, because the baby was overdue, and I just said I'd work right up to my due date, and they took full advantage of it. And the things I hoped would be taken away from me and looked after for a few months didn't really happen until the last week or whatever. Understandable. It's a small business. Like, there's some chaos there and things like that, right? I have no bad feeling about that. So I went into this mini maternity leave. She was overdue for quite a bit. So, kicking around for another 10 days after my due date until she came along. And then, just tried to switch off for a bit. I thought I got to really intensely switch off, but it was really unfortunate. It's like she was 7 weeks old and she managed to contract pneumonia. And it was so severe, actually, like the onset of it, that we got rushed to hospital and she was intubated in the emergency room, and my husband had to be at home with my other daughter. And I'm sorry, I'm feeling I'm talking about it, because it was quite traumatic, like watching, a 7-week-old like be intubated. And then she was transferred in an ambulance over to Southampton, and I just sat by her side during my maternity leave until she recovered. And it took 11 days for her to recover. And when she opened her eyes after she'd had the tube taken out, it was just magical. Like, it was just absolutely magical. It's just like, welcome back, And then I brought her back home. Finally, we just shut off from the world, and it was just the four of us, for 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. And then I had to go back to work, And my husband, was into the really tricky phase of a new business. So he was just sort of 18 months into his new kind of event production business. I was the main breadwinner, right? So I had to go back to work, and no one was happy about it. I was not happy about it. He was not happy about it because he had to go and work as well. We had to get my mum to come and look after baby. All I did was sat there expressing milk so we could just give her milk, right? Because she was, 11 weeks old when I went back to work. So I went back to work, a husk of a shell of a woman, and clearly tired, right? Because that's what newborn babies do to you. And I got on with it, but I won't lie, grumpy, tired, post-pregnant woman being back in an office full of young, moody developers, because every developer's a bit moody. I liked it. I liked the sitting there having a hot coffee and being away from people, but
yeah, that part's nice.
Yeah, for sure. But I definitely was grumpier and not so pleasant before, and a little shorter and more impatient about things. As the kind of weeks went by, when we started to prepare for my daughter to go to nursery, I started to just go through negotiations and trying to get an understanding if I was going to stay at the business and if I was ever going to get paid more and what the opportunity would be, and just doing all those things that you do as a woman at the end of a maternity leave. Can we afford nursery? How is our life going to change? Well, I was doing that whilst I was at a job, right? I just remember I was sat in a stock room that was behind the main office where all the sort of developers work. It's the only private place that I could go and sit and express milk, because I had to express milk in the office twice a day. I was going to have to come back to the office more. I'd managed to negotiate working from home a couple of days a week, but that was going to end and I'd have to be back in the office pretty much every day. And it just sort of dawned on me as I was sort of sat there in the office, and all I can hear is this breast milk pump, and it's like there's no Wi-Fi, I can't, no 3G, no 4G, so I can't even look at my phone, right? And I'm just like, what have you done, Vicki? What have you done? This decision that you'd made to come work at a company, help them build it up, what were you thinking? You could never help them. You could never have helped them. It was just mad thinking that I could do that and have another baby. It's different with the first one, because you still got an element of freedom about your life, but when you've got two, it's just totally different. And you got three, I can't imagine what that's like, right?
I wouldn't know what just having one was, would I?
yeah.
Two just coming at once. Our life definitely changed.
Right. And so there I was pumping and thinking, and I'm like, this isn't what you're meant to do. You're not meant to work for someone else. You're not meant to not see your kids. You're not meant to try and negotiate more money to pay for a nursery. You're meant to see your kids more. This is the whole reason why you did what you did. This isn't you 8 years ago after that initial burnout going, it's okay, do a bit more yoga. I'll take some time. I started doing Pilates. I take some time out for myself. I have more holidays. You can't do that now. And you can't do all the things. And I had a real reboot moment, a real 100% reboot moment in that room. And I was just like, I'm going to quit. It came in my head. I'm going to quit. I'm going to set my own business up. It's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to do this on my own. And every single penny I make, I'm going to make for me. And I'm going to make for my daughters. And I'm going to see my kids more than anyone has ever been able to let me do whilst I was working for someone else, right? And that is what drove me out of that office, hiding my milk under my jumper so I didn't make anyone feel uncomfortable, right? Because I had to then take it home every day. After it's storing it in the fridge behind a thing so people didn't end up putting it in their tea or whatever, right? I got up, he drove me out that office, leaving another month later, and there I was, sat in a cafe the next day, official unemployment day with my husband, just sort of celebrating it. But when I went home after that moment and I said to him, I'm going to quit, how do you feel? Because your business ain't great. I've only got a month's worth of savings. He said to me, we will make it work. We will make it work. And I just, I knew we could. And I won't lie, the first year of business for me was hard. It was really, really hard. And, I slapped on a lot of personal debt. like trying to get through that first year. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought, oh, I'll build websites for people. I can do that. Or I'll do a bit of consulting. I mean, I literally did anything, right? So I made a video for someone. I went and filmed it and edited for her. I did people's social media if they wanted me to. I literally was like, if there's anything digital that needs doing, I'll do it, you guys. I'll do it. And I didn't charge enough. And I wasn't working with people I liked very much either. And one particular client like never let me finish their website, and it was like really frustrating to work on a project that never went live. There I was chasing money from people, I ended up getting a consultant gig for 6 weeks at an agency in Brighton. And it was really interesting because I got to go back into the agency world just for like a short period. Because there were times after I'd quit, in the sort of following 6 months where I was thinking, maybe I'll go back. I'll find another job. And, I did have an interview with a really big agency in London. I don't know. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I forgot my reboot. I forgot my mission for a little bit, and I went to do this consultancy and it was very pleasant and they were all amazing and very lovely. And I got to do my job, but I left it thinking, oh, I'm glad I'm not going back there. I'm glad I'm not going to work in an agency environment anymore because it's just sort of not for me. Because at that level, right, it's like they spend loads of money, clients. We used to build websites for them and not think about the money, and it wasn't ever our money. It was some big corporations' cash, Whereas when you work with small businesses, it's their money, right? And if you screw it up, you're screwing up the chance for them to get on and earn the crust in their business. And it means a lot. That's what I want to help out with. And I was really lucky, to be able to figure out what I wanted to do by the end of that kind of first year after I'd quit. I quit I left in the May, and by December I was like, I'm going to do a course. I'm going to teach people how to build their own website and how to drive traffic to it. And I knew that because the conversations I've been having with people over the summer, bless them, my small business contacts, I go out and network with them and connect with them. I can build your website for you. And they'd be like, great, how much? I'd be like, well, $2,000. And their faces would go white. Like small business owners are like, $2,000. $2,000. Like they weren't even making 5 a year. Do you know what I mean? And these were the people I feel blessed / cursed to work with, right? Because how do you help people who are just starting out, Putting all of that information into something affordable like a course, I felt was like the best way of helping people because, they could choose whether they wanted to afford it or not. And quite often I found as well, the secret that no one ever told me until I started going out and exploring this new world was that these people wanted to learn how to build their own website like you did, right? I mean, you want to know how to do it yourself. You want a modicum of control. Since that decision in that stock cupboard, haven't looked back. It's just been an amazing, it's nearly 3.5 years have passed now. It's just flown by. And I'm at a point now in my business where I can't quite remember how painful it was, which is really great. I thought at the time, this hurts, going out on my own, not making any money. I turned over like 20 grand in my first year. I think I paid that in tax in my corporate job once in the year. Do you know what I mean? It was like really humbling to use my business smarts and just really focus properly on the people I wanted to help, a niche. And as soon as I did that, as soon as people realized, oh, so you've got all this corporate agency experience. Oh, you specifically help people build websites, WordPress websites. You specifically help people with this. Like my audience started to grow. I think about my reboot moment a lot. So this is why I was like, I want to talk to you about it. But it's like the most I've rabbited about myself online, like forever.
Oh, so really, really interesting. Because I've seen that journey, really. I've seen 2 years worth of that journey. How you've continually evolved and that juggling as well, juggling of the kids. I know that we've had calls and things like that. And we know that how difficult it is sometimes to juggle it all, because that's similar sort of mentality that I had in that, yeah, we're women. Yes, we can do it. We can have it all. You can have family, you can have a career, you can have this, you can have that. Might break you, but you can have it all. Why do you think we think that.
Oh God, because we've been conditioned. I think there's an element of toxic positivity when it comes to feminism. Like we spent all of these years in the kind of like the feminist arena of saying, career first. You can have everything that men have, but like what men have, or what men have had in the corporate world for all those years, is the women looking after the kids or the nanny or whatever, right? So I think we forget that, like, we can have anything the guys have, but they've had support for a really long time. That's how come they've done so well, right? So it's a total myth, 100% myth, that you can have this really enriched, amazing life with your kids. You can drop them off at the school gates and, be like a CEO. You have to make a compromise. You can't do both things, because you're not going to give the attention to one or the other. And also as well, I think from our generation in particular, we've been pushed like quite hard to try and achieve the same as men, which has not been a bad thing. I feel like it's good that we've been told you can get there. However, it's a little bit like the hustle culture from recent years, really, is what we should have been asking all those years is, well, do we want it? Do we actually like want to push ourselves that hard? Because there is something to say for having a slightly quieter life, a slightly more considered life, one where you enjoy, simple things. The kind of pathway that I've decided to go down is like, a simple life that isn't full of too many people, is not complicated. There's no drama in my life. The friends I have are very pleasant people. There's again no dramas. I'm very lucky to have that. I feel like I've spent many years cultivating it. It's all about my kids and what they want to do, and choosing that pathway is just possibly against the grain of what we've been told as female business owners. You've got to push it, you've got to lean in. Cheryl said, didn't she? You got to lean in, you got to sit at the table. Well, I can tell you, I've sat at the table, I've leant in, and it's still rubbish. So there's got to be a compromise. If you are a single man, great, lean in, do all of those things, you're going to have a great time. But for me, I had children because I wanted to raise children, I think, and that's like a really big defining part of my life. And you were just sort of talking about like when we're on calls and whatnot, and our kids just wander in the room. We're like, oh, all right, and I was doing Zoom calls way before it was trendy in the pandemic, right? And I had small children around me because we could only afford to put them in nurseries so much. And, the baby would be in her like baby seat rocking in the room. And like my daughter would be napping usually when I go live or doing a Zoom call, like my eldest, but she'd wake up and just wander in and wave on the camera and stuff. And in the beginning, I was a bit like, oh, what will people think? Because in the past, I'd hide my children from my corporate life. No, I'm not a mother. I am I'm a board member. I'm not a mother. But now, like, I'm just like, no, this is, remember the reboot moment. This is not what you wanted. So I have actively involved my children in my life. My office door is always open, so they can wander in and out. They join me on lives and Zoom calls. They wave. Everyone on my membership knows who they are. Oh, all right, how you doing? Give them a wave. Hi, Scarlett. Hi, Amy. Yeah. And they know what I do. They know that, like, I teach people how to build websites. I teach people how to drive traffic. They talk about it themselves. They're like, Mummy, I want to build a website. So we've created my eldest a blog where she posts her favorite owl and husky pictures. And but it's a way of like sharing what I do. And then the littlest has a toy computer and she sits in saying, I'm making websites like Mummy. I mean, it's just lovely. Like, I'd like be like, well, there's better careers you can have, in hindsight. And it's the same with my husband as well. Like he's in a workshop, they go to the workshop, they're aware of what he does. So we've really fused together like home life and working life, and that we've made that normal. I've also made it normal to say to my clients, I can't do that. I can't do that time. I switch off when I need to be around the kids, because this is the reason why I do it. So
do you think that you would have felt the same had your baby not been in hospital?
Eventually. Yeah, I think eventually. I think I'd been in denial for a really long time that I wanted to set up on my own. I just always had seen men in the business world around me burn out, not see their families, get divorced. I didn't really have any female business owning role models around me, as is usual, as is the way of my whole life. I've never had enough female role models around me, with the exception, say, of like my mum, but she's always been an at-home business person, works on her own. She works as a seamstress for many years, but in terms of the corporate world, I didn't really have that, not really. And so I think because of that, it definitely put me off. I was just like, why on earth would I put myself through all of this stress to get to 5 seconds within a heart attack kind of thing? So I wasn't really interested. But I think getting older, having kids, changing lifestyle for sure, I'm realizing that there's people out there that I wanted to help. It will kind of change things. So I think I would have got to there eventually. Yeah.
Exciting. So you mentioned about switching off. How do you switch off so you can switch on and perform at your best?
I just want to caveat this by saying this is something I work on every single day still, because I am an addict, right? I am a workaholic. I am addicted to just sitting here and just doing non-stop work until my eyes close, and then I get up and do it again. And then, I realized after a while, after doing that sort of pattern, that is probably not a good idea, and I need to recharge, and I'm not as young and bouncy as I once was. I tell you what, though, doing it while you've got 2 little kids is perfect, because you're knackered anyway, right? So it just doesn't matter. And as soon as they start going to bed and sleeping through and not waking up in the middle of the night and things like that, it felt like I got definitely a quality of life back. If you know what I mean. But I adopted a couple of strategies a couple of years ago, which really helped. I was really hyper aware, right, that because my business is mostly run through Facebook, right? That's where my community is. That's where I do most of my networking. I also run Facebook ads and kind of do that as a sort of business as well. And I would just be checking that nonstop. I had all the notifications on, I just didn't know. I was a slave definitely to my phone. I adopted something which I did in the agency after that first. I'm doing the bunny ears here, burnout. I realized that every time there was a voicemail on my phone, this is from years ago, from a client or my MD, I'd get triggered because I learned about CBT, right? And I was like, oh, this is triggering me, because I felt like I was going to get in trouble for something. And my hands would shake as I'd dial into the voicemail. And I couldn't handle it anymore. So I just switched voicemail off. And occasionally, clients would be like, couldn't get hold of you today. And I'm like, oh, yeah, my voicemail's not working. Just text me. And it's amazing, right? Because as soon as you get text, you can screen that call and decide, I will get back to you when I am mentally ready, right? So I just did that with my socials, basically. I switched all notifications off. The only notification that pops up is text message, but no one text messages me apart from my husband. So there's a nice sort of line of comms there. And I don't follow anyone on Facebook. So I'm sorry if you're listening to this and you think that we're Facebook friends, but every single person is unfollowed. The only thing that shows in my feed are the group stuff and any sort of business stuff that I'm part of. So it just means I just don't do the compare and contrast. I spend time monthly going, oh, I'm going to go and see how so-and-so is doing. And I will go and comment and check in on people, but it just means that the feed doesn't interrupt me. I get to choose when I do that. And because of this, and this sounds like I'm an idiot that I need this, right? But I need these boundaries in place, Emma, right? So I have on my computer a timer app in my browser. So once I've done half an hour on Twitter, it will shut me down. It won't let me go on Reddit. It won't let me go on Reddit. It won't let me go on the Guardian website anymore, because I just start procrastinating and absorbing news. And Twitter's really I love it, but it's also a bad place to find out about the human psyche. So it's just I'll choose when I check in on that and not the other way around. Yeah. I also have all of the key apps hidden on my phone as well. And then when I need to have proper kind of guidance, I have the app limiters switched on. So I only do half an hour of Instagram a day. These things, right, plus scheduling my time in a calendar for all tasks, so time blocking, means that I don't pick my phone up at night and go, oh, I just just go and have a little scroll through Facebook and check how people are doing or whatever. And like, let my brain get filled up with stuff that isn't, like good for me, basically, comparisonitis and all of, hearing about bad news and all of that type of thing. I get to choose when I go into that world. And as much as I love tech, I think I know about it and the way that these tools have been structured a bit too much. So it was really important for me to pull away from the addictive nature of how they work so I can control how I use it and it doesn't control me. And that just makes me sleep so much better at night. Like just not being a slave to notifications.
So your mind is a temple. You're just protecting and feeding your mind with the things that you want to feed it with. And that's, funnily enough, a module in the Human Reboot.
Very good. Like 100%. Like I do respect my mental health enough. And I feel like, which is why I mentioned it at the start of this, like having like cognitive behavior therapy really helped me understand that. And I'm able to be aware of what triggers me and what might bring on anxiety and what might bring on certain emotions. And I sort of apply that to kind of everyday life.
Yeah, very practical. We look at triggers as well and how you kind of manage those. Minimize, manage, or eliminate.
Eliminate, bin them all.
It's a conversation. It's like, such and such bodies are triggering me. Oh, eliminate.
Bin it.
No, we can't do that. But anyway, yeah, just the final question really. What would you say is your flourishing formula for living? So if you're going to give people a tip on how best to live their life, what would you say?
Oh God, like keep it simple. Don't complicate things. I feel like as soon as I started to pack my diary out and felt compelled to have to keep in touch with more than like the handful of people I know, life got complicated and boring. Protect your time. Your time is the only thing that you've got control over, whether you give away or not. And you've only got so many hours, right, before you kind of head up to the kind of big stopwatch in the sky, right? So definitely like a kind of a rule of thumb for me in terms of how I live every day is I look at my time and think, is this how I genuinely want to spend my time? If this was £100, this hour, would I just give it away like this? And where possible, I only spend my time doing things that I love, working on my business, with my family. I love reading. I love really bad TV, action movies, which really annoys my husband because he does not like guns and violence, and hanging out with my cat. A simple life is definitely like one I can heartily recommend. When you slow down, you can just appreciate it so much more. And I'm sure like that's mindfulness, right, Emma? And I didn't realize it until I started doing it, that you can't appreciate it when you're just doing too much. And my business moves at breakneck speed anyway. And that's okay to do. But in my personal life, I slow down immensely so I can enjoy it.
Good. That's great. So any books or podcasts or anything that you would like to recommend to our listeners that you feel have helped you along your journey?
Oh, yeah, sure. So like without a doubt, Denise Duffield-Thomas, The Chillpreneur, was a book that definitely changed my mindset about the things I do in my business. And she's just brilliant at that. And then Paul Jarvis, Company of One, is an excellent book as well. Even though I'm not a company of one now, what it does is it teaches us that being, one person in a business and just doing enough to have a nice life and a living is enough. And I feel like that's a kind of a really good book to read based on the things we were talking about. And it just made me okay with life being what others would say is okay, but I think is great. We don't have to strive for like multi-million-pound corporations. I mean, don't get me wrong, I would like to grow my businesses, but like just having that feeling sometimes that what you're doing is enough, and you look around and you've had the nice holiday, you're hanging out with your kids, you've eaten, you can sleep well at night. Like that helps. And I think that book really sort of helped crystallize that.
And that's not to say, is it, that, it doesn't mean to say that you can't have the same financial equivalent. It just sometimes takes a bit longer to get there with your own business to begin with. It's about building it and growing it, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I'm in business for the process. I absolutely love it. I'm in it because of my mission. I want to help my people for sure. And, the fact I get to make money from that is just like a privilege and a joy. It really is. But doing it in a kinder, softer, calmer way is also definitely like something I can recommend to others.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always believed that if you get your mission right and you believe in it and providing, the right service to people, that the rest will come, the financial side will come enough to be able to kind of support you and grow and all the rest of it. So for me, it's very similar. You come from a really similar angle. For me, it's the purpose first. It's not about just making a living. It's about a whole picture. Mm-hmm. So if people want to get in touch with you, how are they best to do that?
Just come and find me at heyvickyjakes.com. Come and hang out with me over there. You can also find me on Instagram as well, heyvickyjakes.com. And I don't mind the odd DM if you want to come and chat about websites anytime with me as well. It'd be lovely to hear from anyone.
Brilliant. And you have your own podcast as well, don't you?
I do, yeah. It's Online Marketing Basics for Busy Website Owners. And we're kind of coming back with a new series soon where we're going to be talking to business owners about their journey growing their businesses online. So I'm really excited to kind of bring that to the world soon.
Fabulous. Thank you ever so much. I have absolutely loved talking to you today.
Thanks, Emma. Thanks for having me. It's been brilliant. You almost got me to cry, but it's okay. I didn't.
Well, you nearly did it to me as well. You could have pre-warned me about that. Sorry. Thank you for listening to the Human Reboot podcast. I'm Emma Last. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please leave me a 5-star podcast review and visit thehumanrebootmovement.com, where you can find downloadable free resources, sign up to my mailing list, or connect with me on social. So that's thehumanrebootmovement.com. Let's switch off so we can switch on. It's time for your human reboot.